Hi there, it's me, Ben Brooks, signing in again. It's been a bit of a while, hasn't it? But I'm still here, I'm still alive, just about. Hopefully won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Anyway, just to let you know that I'm back, and hopefully there will be some really good videos, well, mediocre videos if I'm perfectly honest, coming out in the next few weeks, because I have nothing to do. It's university summer. I have a bit of research I need to do, but that doesn't need to take up the entirety of my time. So, yeah, hopefully there'll be some stuff coming forward. While I've got your attention, actually, there's been some really interesting stuff happening in the world of science, and let's just cover one or two of them. Number one, BP oil spill. We have to cover the BP oil spill. It's been everywhere, and let's be honest, everybody's been ranting about it. Okay, so BP have a spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Everybody knows this. It's a complete disaster, and everyone immediately jumps on the bandwagon and tries to flog BP to death. However, if we may stop for 1 minute, and if I may alienate myself, probably for the entirety of my YouTube career, if I even have one, BP was the first company to have a disaster at 1 mile or more depth in the ocean. First time. Not second time, not third time, first time. It's the first time anybody has attempted to fix a problem that deep under the sea. And people should have, in my opinion, should have let them get on with it. Okay, they did wrong. BP fucked up, let's be honest. BP did lots of stupid things, and their head was a moron. And the guy, he's from my country, I can't apologise for him, it's not my place. However, people should have let them do it, and let them fix the problem, do some of the clearing up, before trying to sue them, before trying to get the Senate to bash them to pieces. And no offence to Mr. Obama, he is an excellent president and I like him very much, but why did he have to jump on the bandwagon as well? Everybody's been berating BP again and again and again for 3 whole months, actually 4 months now. And really, if you're a company who's dealing with something a mile beneath the sea that they've never dealt with before, you don't want the whole country breathing down your necks, trying to essentially ruin your company whilst you're there, trying to fix the problem. Okay, when it's finished, like it is more or less finished now, then the Senate can set up committees to berate them. Then the President can bash them to pieces, then the markets can crash around them. But 4 months of them trying to fix it, with people down their throats, it really probably didn't help. But there we go, rant over. My country does produce some idiots at times, and it would seem that BP's oil men are included in that bunch. Anywho, moving on. The ScienceBlog fail. If you've been around Twitter or you've been around the science blogging community, you must have been living under a rock not to see this one. It's fantastic. Seed, a company, I think an American company, but I couldn't vouch for that, has this site called ScienceBlogging.com, I think, which has blogs from famous scientists, science writers, science journalists, who talk about science, politics, all sorts of things. And Seed, for reasons as yet unbeknownst, I think, to most people, decided to sell a blog to PepsiCo, which is fine, fair enough. There are other companies on science blogs. However, science blogs did not label the content as advertorial, and so far as the other bloggers on the site, the independent ones, were concerned, this is a breach of trust, because Seed have said, okay, you want a blog, you pay us money, we'll give you a blog. On the back of the credibility of the independent bloggers. People, for different reasons, I'm not sure who and why, have either gone on the bloggers' side and said, oh, they can't do that, that's wrong, which is the side I'm on, before we come into any bias issues, or they've gone on to the company side and said, oh, well, it's just liberal bloggers, they don't have any right to this. And actually, I'm with the bloggers, because, no, if you're an independent blogger who has built up a site's credibility by being independent, being scientifically verifying everything you say, or labelling what you say as opinion, you don't want some company coming in and ruining it for everybody else by how do we say this politely, raping and pillaging the credibility of the site for the sake of their own commercial interests. Now, we don't know whether that's what Pepsi were going to do. However, that's the impression that pretty much everyone got from the fact that they'd been given a site and it was not labelled as advertorial. So what's come out of this? Well, lots of the bloggers left in protest. Some went on strike and are now back working. But there is one really interesting thing that has come out of it, which is something called Science 3.0, which I'll link to in the underbar. It's hopefully going to do really well because it's got blogs, it's got Twitter and Facebook integration, it's got all sorts of fantastic things. It's some people have labelled it as a Facebook for scientists, which it obviously isn't because they don't work, because scientists don't really want to get involved in things like that. But it's got interesting things like what I've already mentioned, and a collaborative tool for writing science articles, statements, whatever you want. And it's absolutely fantastic. I'm not involved yet. I might be. Remains to be seen. I'm waiting to see what happens with it. But you should definitely take a look. As I said, I'll link to it in the underbar, and you can have a look if you want to. Okay, so final topic. Big politics alert, flashing lights, etc., etc. We have a coalition government now. Fantastic in my view. To be honest, in my opinion, the best option of the options that were available given the election results. In fact, pretty much given anything, to be fair, even though I'm a Conservative. They've recently proposed, or I think Vince Cable proposed, something called a graduate tax, which would replace the current student loans and tuition fees system in favour of not paying anything while you're in your university studying for your degree, and then once you graduate, paying a tax year on year, pretty much like income tax as a percentage of your income. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I think it's absolute bunk. If that's the favoured option, I'd rather stick with the tuition fees. Now, I'm not one who's particularly anti-tuition fees, I just don't want them to go any higher than the £3,800, whatever it is, ceiling that they're on at the minute. But if they put in this graduate tax, then several things will happen. One, people who are on lower salaries will pay less than people on higher salaries. Now, intrinsically, that's fair. However, you would perhaps end up with people like trainee teachers paying very little in the long run toward their degree, or towards the university system, and therefore towards their degree. And then you have people who studied the same length of time at university, so I don't know, maybe a businessman, maybe a banker, I know we hate them, but maybe a banker, paying hugely more for the same length of time at university. Now, maybe I'm not being liberal enough, or maybe I'm being too liberal, I'm not sure which. But that's not good in my opinion. I think that's pretty poor. And of course, the other problem is that, as with most taxes that are meant to be cut off after a set amount of time, I think the idea was that the graduate would pay a certain amount of tax, and then after a certain length of time they would have that tax cut off. I really don't see that happening. I'm maybe being cynical, but I would see them putting in this tax and thinking, actually, if we made this part of the income tax, we'd never have to cut it off. We could just keep taxing these graduates forever. And I'm going to be a graduate next year. I don't want people taxing me for the entirety of my lifetime, over and above people who may have exactly the same job and exactly the same, I don't know, stance of life, but don't have a degree. In the end of the day, I'm going to have paid for my degree through the student loans company, and I'm going to have to pay that back. That's fine. I'm going to pay back what I spent, I suppose, on my degree, plus a little bit more that will be the interest. And to me, that seems fair. Okay, I'd rather it was still the grant system that we had years and years ago, but it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen again. I don't want to be paying a graduate tax, and I think you'll find most students will agree that it might be a better idea than the current student loans, which is something that I'm not sure I agree with, but that's what the general consistency, that's what the general consensus is. But it's still hugely the wrong idea. Anyway, there we go, my opinion. Flashing lights, politics over. Hurrah. Anywho, that's pretty much all I've got for you, I'm afraid. Oh, I haven't rebuilt my website though. That's spangly new and slightly unfinished, but hey ho, it was always unfinished. So if you want to go and have a look at that, by all means, I will link to it down there. Okay, cheers. That's me, Ben Brooks, signing off. Actually, one more thing. I promise this is the last thing. If you're at Edinburgh Festival, or if you're at Edinburgh Festival or you're going to Edinburgh Festival, I'm going to give a shout out and say, please go and see 2 plays taking place, I think, at the Fringe Festival. I don't know anything about Edinburgh, really. One is called Bliss, and the other is called Swan, or Swan and Co. I'm not sure which. I saw them both last night at at the university. I saw their previews. They were very, very good. Admittedly, the morals of one were completely lost on me, and the other one, there was a little bit of a lull in the middle where the comedy stopped for about 3 or 4 minutes. But they were good plays. They were well performed, extremely well performed, in fact. So please go and have a look at those if you're at Edinburgh. I'll link to Bliss because I know a bit more about it, and you can go and have a look at their site. I've written a review for it as well, so you can go and have a look at that and see if you agree with me.